my team ain't taking no L's. I told him you don't wanna play us. We going out town with a flight in the morning. Said fuck it, I'm just gonna stay up. We eating for days, I've been in the gym. I swear that I'm getting my weight up, yeah. Oh, I seen it all, you avert.
Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another weekly chart breakdown. As always, we will start off on gold here on the weekly time frame. I actually removed all of my zones so I can go ahead and do that with you guys so you understand exactly where I like to place my support and resistance and why I place them there. So when starting off for the week, I start off on the weekly time frame and then just basically work myself down. So when we're looking at the weekly time frame here on gold, we see that overall on the higher time frames we are still very much in a bullish trend. We did get a form of a rejection 2 weeks ago, and now the last weekly candle is rather a indecisive candle. So what I see here immediately is a form of a strong resistance all the way up here, somewhere around this range here, where we can call this the weekly zone, because every time when price reached this area, we got a bearish impulse to the downside, right? So this has happened 3 times now. So if we have at least 2 touches in our major zone of interest, this is making this overall zone a interesting zone of interest where we might be able to take some trades based off. Now coming down into the daily time frame, here's where I will place a little more of zones. So when we're looking at current price action, we see a form of a support and resistance range somewhere around here, this range. Now, why did I put this here? When we look at recent price action, we see that price previously was a resistance here. It turned into a support here, acted as a support here, broke back down, and is currently below this range. So as long as price maintains below this range at the 23.91, we might see another bearish impulse to the downside until price managed to close back above this range. Now another support range that I see here on the daily is all the way down here, where we see a bunch of rejections in this range. We got a rejection last week here, and price is currently trading above the support range, right? Also, when we look a little here to the left, we also see that price acted as a resistance previously, resistance all throughout here, support all throughout here, support here, and resistance all the way here, right? So this is indicating that this overall zone is also a zone of interest. Now here basically what we could do now is just drag a rectangle around this zone so we can include a little more of the price action. So I would like to draw a rectangle a little up into this range here, call this the zone, and now we have this blue rectangle around this range here. We want to right click, clone this, and then drag this up into this next range here. So now we basically have, let me change the name here to daily range. We have a daily range here and down here. So now here on the right, we see, okay, it's a daily zone, and a weekly zone, right? So now basically we do the same. We come back down into the 4-hour time frame and see if we can see something here. What I noticed immediately is that we do have a few zones where they are working together on the daily and 4-hour time frame, such as this resistance range here, support range here. This is ultimately our daily zone, but we also see beautiful touches in the 4-hour time frame. So what this means is when we have 2 zones that act as one zone together, they just have more value and more power in that zone, meaning that based off that zone, we want to take high probability trades. So here we have the 4-hour zone in conjunction with the daily. Here down here we also have the daily in conjunction with the 4-hour, so this is great. And now another 4-hour that I see where price is currently at in that range will be up here, where we have a form of a resistance here, and then a break and retest to the upside here, and then a bunch of rejections here, and price is also currently trading above. So this would be the only 4-hour zone that I will place there right now, and we can also call this the 4-hour. Alright, so basically now that we have all of our zones marked off on the weekly, daily, and 4-hour, here's where we can now draw out and see what we could expect. So as we watched already, or as we looked already at the higher time frames, we see that on the weekly, price is still in a bullish trend. We see that on the daily time frame, price is also still overall in a bullish trend as long as it doesn't break this higher low point over here. This could be considered a double bottom, right, or equal low, and we now might get a continuation of the bullish trend here. Now at the same time, we do need to keep in mind that we are currently below a major daily resistance range. So as long as price maintains below this range, we might see a continuation of the bearish trend on the 4-hour time frame. Because now when we go into the 4-hour time frame, we see clearly bearish market structure where we had a change in structure here. We created a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and this is our potential lower high area. So keep in mind, guys, we're now going to draw out what we could expect for this week, where basically as long as we manage to maintain below the 23.91 range here and bounce along this range, we could take sales back down into the 23.78s. If we start breaking back down under, we could wait for another smaller pullback to see price coming all the way back down into the 23.60 range, right? So this would be the first scenario of a trade that we could take, depending on where price will be tomorrow during New York session. Now, another trade opportunity or setup would be a break and retest above these highs. So we want to wait at least for a 4-hour candle to close above, wait for that pullback, wait for an entry confirmation to then take buys all the way back up into 24.23, which ultimately will look something like this, right? And if you guys already know, right, according to my strategy, once price reaches our major zone of interest, which will be the next one up here, which is the weekly resistance, we might get a bearish impulse back to the downside if we reject. Now, we're not always going to get that. Sometimes price is going to continue flying, which is why it's always important to wait for that candle closure, especially on the higher time frames, such as the daily, the 4-hour, and the 1-hour time frame. So if we get a 4-hour candle closure above right before session, we get a pullback, and we might see a continuation in buys and so on and so forth. So it's pretty self-explanatory, I would say. Basically, you know, I have my major zones of interest. Once price is in this range, I want to see if price can reject this range or if price can break through it and close above with a lot of momentum and volume to then continue the other direction. So that's basically what we're looking at here. Now, once price comes back down into the support range here, guess what? We could manage maybe to take a bounce play all the way back up, because we see that previously when price reached this support, price started rejecting to the upside, here again to the upside. So in hindsight, when we look at the past market structure, we could identify that there's a higher probability the price might bounce off this range again, unless we get strong bearish momentum to the downside. We get a 4-hour candle closure below, we wait for that pullback, and then we take sales back down into the next zone. So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking here at gold, guys. I am keeping in mind the higher time frames, which are bullish on the weekly and on the daily. We just rejected the support range down here, so in this coming week we might get a continuation in bullish momentum. Now, if you're looking to take higher probability buys here on gold, you might want to wait for that change in market structure on the 4-hour time frame just to give you more confirmation on buys, and that will be once price creates a new higher low and a new higher high, and then a continuation of the bullish trend, which will look something like this, where we then get that break of structure on the 4-hour time frame, which ultimately would be right here, where we have this last high here, and then we see price create a new higher high, and before that it created a higher low. We see the pullback leg, we see the extension leg, and then we could take advantage of buys based off the support range over here, right? Now that would be higher probability buys. But as long as the market structure on the 4-hour maintains bearish, obviously we can also take advantage of the bearish impulses that we're having here, because we see that we got a strong bearish impulse, we got a smaller bullish impulse as a retest, we got another big bearish impulse, and we might just get a smaller bullish impulse here again, like a retest, before we get another bearish impulse. Obviously we don't know that, but as long as we maintain below this range, sells are definitely still valid. Higher probability buys if we start closing back above this range, bouncing, breaking structure, and so on and so forth. Now there's where the probabilities will be switching to buys. So I hope you understood the breakdown on gold, and now I'm just going to break down NAS100 for you guys real quick as well. Okay, so coming to NAS100 here on the weekly time frame, we see, okay, NAS is clearly bullish, right? Creating higher highs, higher low, higher high. And now in this range, we don't know where exactly the next higher low might be forming. It could be forming here, it could be forming a little lower. As long as it doesn't break this low here on the weekly, we are still in a bullish trend for a continuation. So we need to keep that in mind. But we are currently in the pullback phase. So where I want to place zones right here on the weekly, obviously this weekly high over here, so we can call this the weekly zone, and then a weekly support and resistance zone down here, where we have resistance and then support. I think you're going to see that clearer on the daily time frame, so we'll be switching to the daily here right now. Yep, here we have it. So basically we have the daily resistance, we have the support right here. Let me drag this a little lower, somewhere around here. Now we can place our rectangle here as well, a little to the lower side. And where else do we see support and resistance? I see a support over here on the daily as well, so we can call this a daily. And then all the way up here as well, somewhere around this range here. Okay, so now coming down into the 4-hour time frame, we see, okay, on the weekly we are bullish, on the daily we just broke structure to the downside. We were bullish, but we did break structure, so we had a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, lower high, lower low, right? We broke these lows here, created a new lower low, created a lower high, created a new lower low. So on the daily we are bearish, on the weekly we are bullish, and on the 4-hour we are also bearish. So as of right now, the probabilities will be with sales until we break structure in at least a 4-hour time frame to continue the overall bullish trend, right? So now coming down into the 4-hour time frame, let's see if we get some zones here. So we got this, put another rectangle around this range, somewhere around here. Okay, so now we have our zone on the 4-hour time frame, we have our zones on the daily time frame. We are in a bearish trend on the daily and on the 4-hour. So as long as we are bearish, we are interested in taking sells. So where would be the best areas to take sales? Could wait for a pullback back into this range at the 19,185 range, see if price can reject all the way back down into the 18,910 range, right? So that would be the first sell setup here. If we start breaking these lows on a daily time frame, guess what? Break and retest to the downside, need at least a 4-hour candle or a 1-hour candle to close below, wait for that pullback, and then a continuation in sales. And if we get a break of structure on a 4-hour time frame, breaking these highs here, creating a new higher high, we come back down, create a higher low, and then continuing in the extension. Here's where we could take buys all the way back up into the 1948s. Before, based off this resistance, we might get another bearish impulse to the downside. Or if price continues with bullish rally and it closes strongly above, break and retest to the highs, right? That's basically what I'm looking here on NAS100. But as of right now, I'm still kind of bearish bias. As long as the 4-hour and the daily time frame are bearish, I would mainly be looking to take sales unless we get that 4-hour break of structure to the upside and we see price bouncing along a major support range such as the 4-hour or daily time frame up here. Here's where you could then switch the probabilities to buys. So yeah guys, that's it with the weekly chart breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.